Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Season 1 of Luke Cage. Like always, when it comes to these things, this is a spoiler, and I will be talking about the entirety of the season. I won't be breaking down episode by episode. I'm just going to talk about things as they come to me. I mean, I've listed some stuff in my notes about what specific subjects I want to cover, so I'll make sure I cover everything I really want to talk about. But it's just going to be all over the place, so I will be covering the entire season, so I will be spoiling stuff. So if you've not seen Luke Cage, I highly recommend you just click away from this and go watch Luke Cage. If you feel the need to, you're like, oh, I'd like to hear Michael's, his idiotic opinion about Luke Cage, what he liked, this, that, and blah, 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 then, you can always come back and listen to this afterwards. Obviously, the main focus is to watch Luke Cage. That's all I really care about, that you do that. But if you do decide to come back, that's awesome. But if you do decide not to come back as well, that's fine too. Like I said, all I want to do is make sure you watch the show, and that's the only thing. If you hear from this video, that's the only thing I want you to take away from it, like that, before I get started. So, and enough of me kind of rattling on. Let's get this started. So first of all, really before even really getting into any spoilers or anything, just overall, how did I feel about the show? Really liked it. It's not like I walked into this with low expectations. I'm not one of those people. It's like, oh, you should have expectations, blah blah blah. It's like, no, like I walk into everything positive, and like I'm never disappointed. Some people are, I'm not. I already knew it was going to be good, so I didn't really care. Like I didn't have to lower my expectations, or my expectations were too blah blah blah. Nonetheless, first thing I kind of want, it kind of ties into the show in general, but at first it's like the title card. I mean, well, kind of the intro. How did I feel about it? I still have to say, out of all three shows, I still think I like Jessica Jones better, just because of the colors and just the design of it. Probably Luke Cage and Daredevil about the same. I like Daredevil a smidge better, just because of it's just the whole, like, how it ends with the, like, blood, like the blood or paint, whatever you want to call it, comes down and forms, like, Daredevil. That's probably like my favorite aspect of it. But what I like about Luke Cage's is because, and this kind of goes with the show, because it's very crime drama-esque. It looks like it'd be the title card of like some kind of crime drama show or something. Like something, because I mean, that is a big part of the show, that it is a crime drama. And technically, Jessica Jones as well as Daredevil are crime dramas as well, but it's different. Like, I heard, like, something that stuck with me is that someone mentioned previously, like before, a while back. They brought up the fact is that Jessica Jones doesn't feel like a superhero TV show. It feels more, like the kind of mystery thriller that it is. It's like, obviously that's the main focus, and then you kind of add in the superhero aspects afterwards. I mean, granted, the whole superpower angle kind of plays a big part in it and Luke Cage, but at the same time, it's just like, even without them, it's still like a show. It's not 100% dependent on them. It still tells a good story. I mean, at least in my opinion. So I feel like Luke Cage kind of, I mean, I'm saying, like, I feel like Daredevil out of all three shows is probably the most superhero-esque of the three. I mean, Luke Cage is it's definitely more superhero-esque than Jessica Jones, because even Jessica didn't use her powers all the time throughout Jessica Jones, but Luke is just, with what his powers are, he uses, like, it's always going to be like a part of him. And when it comes to Matt and Daredevil, he's all, just him being all superhero-ish is every time he goes out as Daredevil, and that's pretty frequent, like every episode, every other episode. So for me, Luke Cage kind of captured the tone of both shows, where it captured kind of the gritty tone of Daredevil and combined it with that aspect of Jessica Jones of, like, taking a crime drama, sprinkling in the superhero aspect without it becoming really all there is to the show. I know that I'm not really explaining that well, but that's just how I feel about it. I'm sorry. And another thing I want to bring up, just because it was a thing that was in the back of my mind. I was like, I'm gonna go ahead and get it out of the way. Multiple times, at least twice, Claire mentions, like, oh, you need a lawyer? I got one. I got a lawyer friend. He's really good. First, Luke denied it. He was like, no, thank you. I was like, oh, don't say no, Luke. Come on. Please take the lawyer. No, come on. I want to get Matt in the show. And then it happened later on. She's like, I can call my lawyer friend, and that was the last of it. But I'm like, I was looking at how much was left in the final episode. I was like, come on, there's like 7 minutes left. Get him to the prison, and then have Matt show up. Please, please let him show up. I was like, it's like, I need this, please. But it didn't happen. Not that I needed it, I just wanted it. I mean, of course, they're not going to do that heavy of a crossover. Obviously, you have Claire being there, being kind of a bridge, but I'll get to that eventually. But it's like, just, I wanted that heavy connection like that, because it's usually the other side characters that kind of play, obviously transfer over to, like, kind of make cameo appearances in other shows. But it's just like, because someone had brought that up before, like way before Luke Cage came out. They're like, oh yeah, what about, like, maybe get an episode where Matt shows up and is Luke's lawyer or something. I wanted it so badly, but it didn't happen. So I guess really they're really waiting for the Defenders to finally put all the characters in one room, even just like any interactions with them. I mean, this could be setting up Luke's story in the Defenders. It could be like he's there and Claire did call Matt, and that's when they had their first meeting in the Defenders, because it's like some way to bring them all together. Before I even go any further, something else I want to talk about is my experience with Luke Cage. Other than Jessica Jones, my only other experience with Luke Cage is in the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon. I do know there was like a Spider-Man game he was into. I think it was Web of Shadows. I could be wrong about that. But other than that, I've never really had any experience with him. I don't read comic books, not because I don't like them. It's just I've never just read them. So specifically, I've never read any of his comic books. I've seen tidbits here and there, but nothing too significant. So this show was kind of a really good chance to really learn about Luke. I mean, you get chances in Ultimate Spider-Man too. I mean, there was like at least one episode I'm aware of that I remember watching that focused on Luke's past. It's very different. Like, that interpretation of Luke Cage is very different from this show's interpretation of Luke Cage, because for one, different ages. Because Luke Cage in Ultimate Spider-Man, he's like a teenager. Obviously, this Luke is a grown adult. Plus, the way he gets his powers are similar, from an experiment, but the circumstances around that experiment are different. So, and kind of talking about his powers, I didn't know he had that aspect to him, like rapid healing. Like, I guess it makes sense with the whole, like, in the whole Jessica Jones situation where we took the shotgun to the head. So it's kind of like, I don't know. I just never knew that was part of his body. Like, I knew about the tough skin aspect of it, but I didn't know about the healing aspect to it too. Especially when later on when he was getting shot, they were like, they couldn't even really get to his soft tissue because his skin would heal so fast, and because it would basically his skin will, like his inner skin from the bullet wound will also like solidify and become just as tough as its outer skin. So I thought that was really interesting. And also how we got to learn about Luke's past. For one, finding out he was a cop, that was very interesting. Like, to me, it never crossed my mind. I was like, oh, he was a cop. And the fact is that that's the reason why he went to prison. Didn't even know his character went to prison until like someone referenced that. And like, I was watching, I think it was SourceFed Nerd, when they were Superhero Roundup, when they were talking about Jessica Jones, they referenced it there, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I had no idea about that. But I wonder, is that something canon to his story? Because they never brought that up about him being a cop, so maybe that's something they specifically are doing with this interpretation of him, which is like very interesting. It's just like a very interesting story. I mean, especially, it's tough, like, being a cop put in prison. I mean, especially because he's like, I was set up and everything, which, I mean, we know to be true, but nonetheless, I mean, and that's at that point in time, it's like no one believed him about being set up. So, and also the only friend he had at his Seagate, Squabbles. Oh, dude, I was so upset when Squabbles died. I was hoping Squabbles, because Squabbles was kind of like his buddy in the in prison. I was just like super sad when I found out they killed him. I was like, oh, that sucks. I was like, okay, they're gonna beat him up to get some information out of him, but it's like I didn't know they were gonna straight out kill him. It made me super sad because at first, Luke kind of ignored him, but then they eventually became friends. I love that little stupid argument about like Jet Li versus Bruce Lee, because Luke was about to fight. He's like, you know what? I still haven't forgiven you for the whole like choosing Jet Li over Bruce Lee situation. And he's like, all right, take your aggression out on them, not me. which personally, I don't know who I'd choose. I'd rather not choose. I'll always pick both. I will never pick one above the other just because I love both men equally. That's how I am, because I feel like Jet Li's probably like influenced me the most because I've probably seen, obviously circumstances and everything, seen more of him, so I'm more familiar with him than I was of Bruce Lee. So, but still doesn't detract from the fact is I love Bruce Lee probably just as much because he's just as awesome. So I'm just just want to add in that little discussion, and I know segueing like that, but I'll getting back to it. I also like, since we are talking about the prison aspect, the fact is that's how he met Riva. Interesting, like she being kind of the psychiatrist at the prison. That was kind of interesting, which is, very unethical dating a former patient, because that's, the whole code of conduct and everything. Isn't kind of the best foundation for a relationship. I mean, this isn't the first story I've ever seen that in. I forgot what else it was. I think it was The Killing, the TV show The Killing, like, the main protagonist, she was kind of like that too. Like, you end up finding out like I think her boyfriend or husband in the show that she was currently with during the show was her psychiatrist too. So I thought, it's like things don't always end well. But what I really find fascinating about that situation, just besides that, was how deeply connected Riva was. Because at first it seemed like, oh, she's just doing a good thing for him. She's helping him out. She's very concerned for him. But then he ends up finding out the truth that it's like, oh yeah, Riva was in on everything. She pretended like she didn't know. I mean, eventually he found out that like she did know, and she, that basically she said that there were no experiments happening at Seagate, which she wasn't saying that she was involved, but she was just saying at that time, she was like, they don't happen here. But then Luke later on brought it up to her face, like, you lied about there not being any experiments here. But the fact is that she was knee deep in it because there's all these recordings from the flash drive she had given him. Basically, her recording herself talking about the fact is that Luke's a good candidate, and thinking that him being friends with Squabble is good, that Rackham was right, that Squabbles is good motivation for Luke, and it broke his heart because for Luke, he even says it in the show, like Riva was his hope. Like in a place like prison, you lose all hope, and she was kind of his ray of light that it kept him strong, it kept him going because of her. Like him spending time talking to her and everything, and just to find out it's like, oh, like it was all a lie. Because even when when he broke out and they got together, married and everything, she still didn't tell him everything, even though she promised she would. And I guess it's because mainly she was scared if he ever found out the truth, what that would mean. I mean, currently he was like, he doesn't love her anymore. He will always respect her for the fact of being what she was for him, his hope. I mean, granted, that does tarnish that a little bit because it's like his hope was false. It was all fabricated. His feelings for her were fabricated. But I mean, it's like she did what she did for him. But I mean, he is currently no longer in love with her. And more so than anything, he's like, I was in love with the idea of her because I didn't really actually know her. Because the sad thing is, I feel like when he finally broke out and she was like, I'm gonna tell you everything, like I think at that point she did legitimately love him. So, but like I said, she was probably just too scared to tell him the truth because she was like, maybe he won't love me anymore, maybe he won't forgive me. And so that kind of brings you back to a very interesting thing of, we really don't know 100% the circumstances how Kilgrave and Riva kind of got together. Like, maybe there was more to it than that. Like, I don't know. Maybe they covered that and I don't remember it because I haven't seen Jessica Jones since it originally came out, last year. So, like, I haven't seen it since then. So, I might be fuzzy on those details. If you do, if you remember clearly or whatever, do let me know in the comments down below. But, like, it was never really explained how Riva and Kilgrave ended up together. So, what I'm thinking is maybe it was pure coincidence. He just happened to choose Riva, or maybe it's because he knew exactly who she was. Maybe he felt like she could be, because the whole point was he wanted to learn a way to increase his powers. So maybe knowing that she was part of the Seagate experiments, he knew exactly who to target, and maybe that's why he went after her. Like, it was no accident he chose her, I mean, granted, the connection to Luke Cage, yes, but I mean, it's like, maybe that's what it is. But like I said, maybe I'm completely wrong and it was just by choice. But I am very interested. If you can, do let me know if they did cover that Jessica Jones or not. If not, that could be a plausible reason why that happened. I mean, at least that's what I was thinking. And then let's quickly talk about Claire, which is very interesting. It was very nice to see her in the show. Like, it kind of got spoiled for me. I didn't know she was going to be in this until, like, I'm about to watch it, and then I happened to see her, the kind of picture they showed as kind of like the thumbnail for Luke Cage. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, the moment you click on it, it's like, oh, like the main cast is there. I was like, oh, that's very interesting. I didn't know she was in this. And it's kind of interesting because she has like a big role in the show, kind of like she does in Daredevil. The only one she hasn't had a big role in is Jessica Jones, because she was only in like 2 episodes maybe. And something, because it'd been a long time since I've seen Daredevil 2, just because I particularly season 2, well, season 1 as well, because the last time I saw season 1 was around the time season 2 came out, because I rewatched it before season 2 came out. But at first I was like, because you end up finding out Claire's actually originally from Harlem, and I was just kind of interested, like bringing up the fact that she left the hospital and stuff. I was like, why did you leave Hell's Kitchen one? I was like, was it because of the whole Matt situation? And I was like, no, it can't be that. And then she brought up the whole hospital situation. I was like, right, the whole cover up thing. I was like, I remember now. A very interesting thing I wasn't expecting in this show was the whole her and Luke thing. At first, with the way the first episode happened, it's like, oh, Luke and Misty? But then that quickly disappeared when he found out she was a cop. And it's like, okay, you lied to me, especially telling me that you were an auditor. So it kind of sucks. Like, 2 women in his life have lied to him. I mean, granted, Reva's lies completely outweigh Misty. I mean, I'm sure Luke eventually got over it. It wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't anything possibly special. I mean, they liked each other, they were flirting, but it was just kind of a one-night stand type of thing. I'm sure Luke was kind of hoping it'd be more. Maybe on some level Misty was kind of hoping it'd be more, but nevertheless. My thing is, like, I know a little bit about Luke, about the fact, because I've been on the internet and I've seen some pictures from Jessica Jones, and it's like, oh, Luke Cage is obviously her husband. So it's very interesting to see him and Claire get together. So I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. It breaks my heart a little bit, because it's kind of one of those situations where it's like, we already know him and Jessica are going to be together, because that's just how that's going to work. It's kind of like, I know I'm crossing the streams a little bit saying this, but, in DC, it's like, oh yeah, Lana and Clark, it's a pretty thing. It's an amazing thing, but it is and will always be Lois and Clark, type of situation. I guess if I want to put a slightly similar, it's kind of a different dynamic, but the whole, I guess Peter Parker, Mary Jane, and Gwen Stacy, granted, that's kind of a different thing. I mean, granted, Gwen Stacy died, which I'm not saying I don't want Claire to get Gwen Stacy. I don't know. That's just they're just setting that up just to kind of break things off. I mean, who knows? Maybe they'll completely go off book. It's like, oh yeah, we're not. You thought Luke and Jessica are going to hook up? Nah, that was just kind of a thing. Then I mean, she hasn't. Granted, Luke hasn't forgiven her for the whole killing Reva thing. Maybe at the end of it, though, maybe that would be a driving force into them getting together. Is finding out, well, Reva lied to me. She wasn't the person I thought she was. But at the same time, it's like, even if she wasn't, there's still a part of him that loves her. Well, he says he doesn't love her, but it's like that type of love don't go away that easily, because she meant so much to him. She did so much for him. So when it's all said and done, maybe that might be a contributing factor into getting back with Jessica. I mean, because they never really, because, after he recovered, he pretty much left. So him and her haven't talked since then. So I'm sure after he got, healed and left, he went probably straight to Harlem. So they haven't talked to each other since then. So another thing that's kind of like, maybe that's something we'll see in the Defenders, them kind of like coming back together and be like, oh, hey, Luke, hey, Jessica, I haven't seen you in a while. Yeah, last time I saw you was after I shot you with that shotgun and could have killed you, but I didn't. Yeah. Good times. And that's a very interesting thing, because I keep bringing that up, the crossing over and everything. It's like, it's very interesting that Claire is kind of like the big crossover character. I'm getting the feeling that she is going to be the bridge to all of them. Like, when it comes to the Defenders, she's going to be the one to bring. It's like, oh, you know Claire? Yeah, I know Claire. You know Claire? Yeah, I know Claire. Oh, wow. Claire knows all these superhero people. Because we even saw at the end of the final episode, we see her kind of taking a thing from a, what's the word for those, God, I cannot believe I'm stumping on this. Nevertheless, I'm gonna be so pissed at myself because I can't think of it's such a simple word, but you know what I mean. She ended up taking one, and it's like, oh, here's a self-defense martial arts thing. And the moment I saw that, I was like, wait a minute, is them setting up Iron Fist? I was like, that's going to be interesting. Like, is she going to meet Danny there, or is she going to go there and she's going to meet someone that knows Danny or something? Danny, aka Iron Fist, which is not coming out till 2017. I looked at it. It was I think they said either May, no, they said either March or April of 2017, because they are trying to get these out at least every 6 months. So after that, sometime next year should also be the Defenders, because I don't think they're going to do the Punisher. I mean, especially because they've already put out that little like teaser trailer that isn't really a trailer, but like I said, just it is like a small teaser trailer for the Defender. So I'm thinking that is going to be the next one after Iron Fist. But I don't think that, because I'm not really sure if they are adding Punisher to that or not. I mean, they do have established him, so if they do decide to do it, they won't need the first season of the Punisher series that they plan on doing, because he already got established in season 2 of Daredevil. So, but kind of getting back to it, I like the fact is that Claire is trying to basically, in this season, well, at the beginning of it, when she first appears, is trying to find out what she's going to do with her life. She basically is kind of cementing that she wants to help people, and by doing that, she wants to help people with abilities, because she kind of acts as the rock. She kind of acts as the one that kind of helps guide some people. Not as much with Jessica, but she did so with heavily with Luke and heavily with Matt. So that's even more so the reason why I think she is going to be the character kind of bridge it, especially because this is like her third show she's appearing in. So, and like I said, I'm getting the feeling like they're setting her up to be in Iron Fist. She might not be like a big part in Iron Fist. Maybe they'll kind of offset her character like that. It's like, oh, she's big in Daredevil, but not big in Luke Cage. But then she's kind of big in Daredevil again, and now it's, I mean, Jessica Jones is what I meant. And now it's like, oh, she's big in Luke Cage. Maybe so they're going to offset it every show. She either has a big part, she has a small part, and I feel like maybe with Iron Fist they're setting her to have a small part. Nevertheless, it doesn't really matter. We won't really know until everything's said and done. I'm sorry that I kind of trail off so much. Let's focus back on Luke Cage. This show's villains are very interesting, very surprising. Cottonmouth, for one. I mean, Cornell, aka Cottonmouth. He didn't. I shouldn't even be saying aka because he doesn't like Cottonmouth. I do like the reason why he's called Cottonmouth is basically one of his friends. He 3 missing teeth when he was younger, and so he was called Cottonmouth, and it just kind of stuck. And also Pops got the name Pop because that's the name his fist made when he was beating the crap out of people. Snap, crackle, pop. He helped bring a lot of grittiness to the show. Like, he is kind of like, he tries to be a very civilized businessman, but when he needs to be, he can be ruthless and bloodthirsty. Especially like when he was beating the hell out of Shamik, had him on the floor and start beating him down to the point blood is splattering and covering him. So it was like, I was like, wow. But I was really surprised when you end up seeing him dying like halfway through the season. I was like, holy crap. What was it, like episode 8? Especially it being Mariah being the one that killed him. Because I was thinking like, okay, he's going to be the main antagonist this entire season. And then, because, Diamondback, is the one that kind of fronts him and whatnot with everything. So I was thinking like, okay, so Diamondback is going to be the main antagonist of the second season of Luke Cage. That's what I was thinking, like, okay, Diamondback stays in the background the entire time, and then Luke takes down Cornell. But it's like, nope, that was completely taken care of when Mariah ended up killing him. And very interestingly enough, it was the same episode you got a little bit more background on him. That same episode, the episode he died. I thought that was kind of interesting. And that's also, since you are talking about Mariah, like, she kind of stepped up at her kind of villainous ness as the season progressed, rather, I should say. Because in the beginning, obviously she's trying to take all the money that Cornell has, like, trying to kind of almost legitimize everything. She's, trying to revitalize the community, keep the community ties strong and whatnot. So it seemed like she's a lady that has the best of intentions, but kind of goes about things the wrong way. But as the season progresses, at first she's kind of like, why would you do this? You can't do that. Oh, no, I don't want to be a part. Until it eventually becomes like, I don't want to be a part of it. Get it done. Just don't tell me about it. I don't want to see it. I want to know about it, type of thing. And then eventually it turned into doing said things. Like, for instance, killing Cornell and then setting Luke Cage up, which I'll get to that later. But she really stepped it up. I guess a real big part of that was shades whispering in her ears, because like she eventually felt kind of no remorse. In her words, she finally became the person Cornell always saw her. I mean, when you look at their upbringing, it's not too shocking. When you look at Mama Mabel, she was pretty thuggish herself. The way that kid was like basically, what was he selling? Coke or something like that. And basically, Mama Mabel, their main supply for selling stuff was women, guns. I forgot what the other source of income for them was, but she was like, we're not dealing with that. The kid was like, no, but this is a lucrative business that we should get a part of. And just kind of set a point, she cut off his fingers with like, was it some garden shears or something? I don't think they were garden shears, but like cut his finger off right there at the table, and it's pretty brutal. And even forcing, even though Cornell was more of the artsy person, forcing him to go downstairs with Pete, and they beat that dude down. And Cornell came back up with his hands bloody, and she grabs his hands and makes him kind of rub it in his hands just to kind of get a feel for it, kind of get finally get his hands dirty after all this time. She even made him put Uncle Pete down, mainly because, well, Mariah was okay with it because, you know, apparently Pete did some stuff to her, but at the same time, Mabel wanted to take him down because he was having back dealings with the other people. Particularly, was it the Cubans or whatever? He was doing that, so she had such a big problem with him. And it was like, family always comes first, so that's why she had particularly Cornell be the one that kind of put him down, which was kind of hard for him because Uncle Pete was the only person that he really relied on. Like for him, like Uncle Pete's the one that kind of pushed him to be more artsy, like, oh, practice his piano, get better. Mabel was the one that was kind of like, no, you got to be a part of like the family business. So, and then kind of finally talking about Diamondback himself. Like I said, I thought he'd be kind of like the background antagonist, and next season he'd be the main antagonist, but it's like, nope. After like Cornell dies, he kind of comes out the scenes, and it's just kind of like, I mean, especially finding out that he was Luke's half brother, and then finding out really the reason why he's so pissed at Luke was because of such a personal reason. It's like essentially daddy issues, saying daddy didn't love me enough, so that's why I hate you. You should have never been born, because basically things were okay. You know, dad was with his mistress, but he was going to leave your mom for my mom, and we could have been a happy family until you came about. You were, you know, Luke was known as the miracle child because his mom had been trying for like 2 years or something to get pregnant, but didn't, and then all of a sudden she gets pregnant, which is, you know, basically he stopped paying any attention to Willis and start focusing more on Luke, which Luke is kind of like, I don't know what he's being so butthurt about. Essentially, dad didn't care too much about me neither, especially when Luke went to prison. Like, he didn't listen to any, like, anytime Luke called him or sent him letters, like the letters, he sent them all back without reading them, like not listening to Luke's side of things. So it's like, dad's not very particularly fond of me, so it's like, you're up here filled with hate over something that shouldn't matter. But that's all he knows, that's all he has, is because it's like, for instance, like Luke, I mean, his real name being Carl Lucas, like he had the last name Lucas. Willis was, you know, had to keep his mom's last name Stryker. He couldn't even be a Lucas. So, I mean, that's what makes it very interesting, because it makes that dynamic very personal. Personally, I'm like, that's a stupid reason to be so angrily pissed at someone, going as far as he did to send Luke to jail, set him up for whatever situation. Because we never really got context on what that situation really was that sent Carl to jail. So, but to do that and then go after him later and just be like, you know, trying to kill him now. I mean, he was super upset because the fact is, I had you framed and sent to jail and you came back with superpowers. How messed up is that? Which, kind of quickly talking about that whole bullet thing was very interesting to me. I find it fascinating that, I mean, they talk about it, obviously, but the incident being the whole thing that happened in Avengers 1, no aliens attacking it and whatnot, that metal is what they used to forge the bullets they used to, like, shoot and actually hurt Luke. what I find fascinating is that you're able to reproduce it like that. So I'm guessing they were able to get a good chunk of it, because you would think the government, or rather SHIELD, would have confiscated a lot of that the moment they had a chance. But I guess some of it slipped through the system. Maybe some people stole some. Like, it's like, oh, I could sell this for a high price, and maybe it does make you wonder how Diamondback was able to get his hands on so much of it. Maybe he has connections with people, in the government, or maybe he has connections to people on the streets who just naturally were able to get some. Maybe there's like a secret supplier, but it's just like, because even the police later on were able to have like, mass produced bullets. They were not as powerful as the one Diamondback were originally using, but it was enough that like the moment you fire off enough of them at Luke, he'd be Swiss cheese. So I even love that stupid thing, because I was just reading my notes. What Shade says to Diamondback, he's like, "What you talking about, Willis?" And Diamondback's like, "Oh, you got jokes, huh?" Because that's, I think that they make a very interesting team too, Shades and Diamondback, because Diamondback is so fueled by revenge that he doesn't think things through. Like during the whole Harlem Paradise, which I love the name of that place. It's a very interesting club. That's another thing about the show, like the music. They always had like very good music, as well as those performances on stage were very amazing. I kind of liked it. That's kind of a place that we kept getting to come back to, got new music each time. But nonetheless, like the whole situation, they got it locked down. He's like, the police are everywhere. We need to come up with a plan. And Diamondback's like, nah, we don't need one. We just got to get Luke. He's like, is that really all you care about? And he's like, yeah. He's like, we can get him some other time. He's like, no, we got to get him now. Because Shades was the more calculated person. I guess that's kind of a thing Diamondback and Cornell kind of shared, because really the one that really had the most plans was Shades. I mean, that's kind of one of the reasons why Diamondback kind of ended up sending Zip to go kill him later on, because it's like he felt like Shades kind of overstepped his boundaries, that he was aiming too high. Like, a reference they kept making was comparing him to Icarus, flying too close to the sun. But that's just because you have Diamondback being the very wild card that he is, and it was just like Shades is like, I got my plans, and it's just like you're not helping things out. We need to take a step back and realize, like, because basically, I guess in Shades' mind, it's like you being so set on going after Luke, it's going to ruin everything. You're going to put, like, basically bring us too close to the spotlight, which, Diamondback idiotically did later on when he did when he fought Luke in the final episode. He brought too much attention to himself. It's like a good villain stays hidden in the shadows and only reveals themselves when they need to be. Because even Cornell, like, even being villainous as he was, people knew what he was capable of, what he did, but he was still able to walk about, out in the broad daylight, because he hid what he did very well. Diamondback just did everything out in the open. So, that's at least how I feel about it. And because I was talking about Zip, I love how the fact is he kind of wanted to be the new Shades, even though you had Turk warning him, being like, dude, you're just nothing but like a lackey to him. It's like, you want to pretend that you're your own man, but the moment, all you are is a puppet to him, and that's kind of all you'll ever be, because Turk is smart. He's like, yo, I'll work with you when the business is business. Like, till then, I'm kind of staying out of this whole situation. I thought he was going to be kind of the new Turk, but that disappeared the moment Shades killed him. Granted, he did try to kill Shades, so. And I did like the fact is that he started wearing shades, and then Diamondback was like, take the damn shades off. Like, don't, trying so hard to be like Shades. And that was kind of a thing, too, Turk being in this. I don't remember if he was in Jessica Jones. I know he pops up every once in a while in Daredevil, but I don't remember if he ever made an appearance in Jessica Jones. Once again, another thing, do let me know. I will rewatch Jessica Jones. I'll probably wait until maybe when the Defenders come out. Usually, a situation like that, I usually try to wait, until like the second season's coming up, and then like a day or two beforehand, I go ahead and binge and rewatch the first season again, so. But that's kind of besides the point. But the thing is, Turk is kind of like, this is kind of me making a video game reference, so maybe most people won't recognize it. But the God of War series, at least the first, main three games, you have that captain that dies in the first game, gets swallowed by the Hydra, right? Well, he's kind of a running gag throughout the rest of the God of War series, right? So I'm thinking Turk is kind of like that for the Netflix series, that he pops up every once in a while. Obviously, he ends up causing problems because he's the one that sold Chico out and that led to like Pops dying. It's the whole barbershop getting shot up. He played a little bit of a role doing some bad stuff, but at the same time, he's kind of like almost like those kind of a jokey bad character. Because like I remember one time he showed up in Daredevil, and it was just kind of like Daredevil. Turk is like, dude, come on, leave me alone. And then Matt's basically busting him for information. He's just like, it was just kind of almost like a funny scene. And it was kind of similar in Luke Cage, where you had Luke putting him in the dumpster and closing it up like that, which was pretty cool. And he's like, yo, you can't leave me in here, man. This thing's full of diapers, man. So that's why I mean he's kind of a jokey character. I'm very curious to see will he kind of continue to pop up or not. Like, because to me, that's kind of what his purpose is, to kind of be there to kind of screw things up a little bit, but at the same time be kind of a jokey character. I mean, maybe that's not the point, but that's what it kind of seems like to me. Like he's a running gag villain, you know? Now I mentioned it earlier, and now I'm kind of going back to the whole thing about setting Luke up. That was pretty impressive. Shades is pretty smart for being able to come up with that, especially the way he went about it, wearing the gloves and punching Cornell's dead corpse, just to kind of make it seem more like punches rather than, you know, the mic stand that it was, which like I didn't bring that up. That was pretty brutal that she did that with a mic stand. It was just kind of like, and it's very interesting that she almost felt so bad afterwards. I mean, the fact of the matter, it shows you she didn't, eventually she kind of got over it, because there's all these people like, oh man, I'm so sorry that Luke Cage killed your cousin. Yep, me too. It's like, you're so cold-hearted. But that combined with what Diamondback was doing about like punching, like using that souped up club to punch people to kind of mimic Luke Cage hurting someone. And like, to me, it's like, really? There's multiple people out there with superpowers. We've already referenced it. You all know about the Avengers. So it can't just be Luke. I mean, granted, with the circumstances of him just running around with a hood on and fighting, I guess that kind of, you know, it's like, oh, it can only be him, especially when he's going around using the name. But it's like, to me, I found it fascinating that no one thought it was suspicious. I mean, granted, Misty did, but, you know, she was so, like, she's kind of on her own in that belief. And at the same time, she didn't really trust Luke when she should have. But, like, you know, because it's one of those situations, it's like, really? Do you see all of this evidence? Like, if he really did it, do you really think him to be a stupid enough criminal to leave all this evidence around, providing that he is the person doing it? Even like after he Diamondback killed that cop and is like, yo, my name is Luke Cage. It's like, would Luke Cage really do that? For what reason would he be going after the cops? Well, they're trying to paint it as being like, well, he's, you know, maybe he got scared because the cops are trying to arrest him. But if that was the case, he wouldn't have to worry about it, because the cops are using regular guns. He wouldn't need to hurt him. He just have to run away. Because Misty kind of brings up that point, like, who would honestly bring up their name when they're trying to hide away from cops? Because just killing him just draws more attention to him. But like, people just, it's just like I said, there is a mountain of evidence piling up against him, and you use that against him. They even used that dash cam footage, but every time they referenced it, they only show the part where he's pushing that second cop into the car. What about the time where he just knocked the guy out and then he shielded him from his partner doing all those bullets? It's like he always shied away from that, because I think someone referenced the fact that they never showed the full video. The point was to put him in a bad light, but you know, it's just they did a very good job of framing him. But like I said, it was just at the same time, it's kind of like, just why were people, I mean, I guess that's really a very interesting thing about this show too, is the fact is that it does do that. That it's kind of showing you that people can be on your side. Everyone was cheering on Luke. Yeah, Luke Cage is the man. And in a moment, everyone turns against you, just like that. Kind of like almost like a 15 minutes of fame. Like, oh, you're in the spotlight 1 minute, but the next minute, you know, no one cares about you. And now, two things I wanted to bring up really quickly. I love the fact that Luke doesn't actually have a suit in this show. He did have that whole situation when he escaped the prison. He put on that yellow t-shirt and he had that tiara. I've never watched any older, I mean, I've never read any comic books like I mentioned earlier. I can only assume that that's a reference to like some old school Luke Cage or something like that. Could be like one of his alternate costumes in some form of the comic book or something. Just the fact is they took time to point that out. I'm like, you look like a damn fool. Like, I can only assume that's the case. But I thought it was also interesting that And he kind of has the same situation as Jessica, because Jessica never actually had a superhero suit. I mean, there was that point where she was thinking about getting one, because it's like, well, I need kind of a super suit if I'm going to be out there like being all superhero-ish, but it never stuck. It definitely didn't happen for Luke. Even throughout the entire season, just wearing a hoodie, that's all he had, which I appreciate. It's very interesting. Like, I mean, Matt went about his, a different way. Like, I was wondering if we were going to kind of go all Daredevil and he gets like a specific suit made, but it's like, nah. Which, interesting enough, that was the other thing I almost forgot. But like, another thing I like this fact is he wore a suit, even kicking ass in a suit. That was kind of pretty impressive. I did like the fact that he did kind of get upset when his suit got shot. He's like, I went through all that trouble getting this suit, and now it's ruined. And quickly, I want to kind of talk about Misty really quickly, because I was referencing her earlier. I really like the way Misty operates, like her whole thing about kind of recreating a crime scene in her head like that. I like that element. Like, I don't see too many people doing that. There's one or two shows I can't think of the particular shows that have done it, but there are some shows that kind of do something like that. But I appreciate the fact that Misty does that. Granted, it doesn't always work in her favor, because later on it didn't work as much with the whole Cornell situation, because she couldn't quite put the picture together properly. I think, because a big part of it is because of her relationship with Luke. Mainly she's against him because it's like, you're a vigilante, leave things to the cops. But Luke's like, no, the system doesn't always work, so I have to be the one to kind of step in where the system fails. Kind of similar to Daredevil, but I think, that was kind of the biggest part of why she couldn't trust him, because she felt like her judgment was skewed because she let that happen, and them sleeping together just kind of screwed everything up. It led to her judgment kind of being very skewed. I mean, also because she kind of says it later on, it's because she lost control, specifically in that situation when Diamondback had the gun against her, could have killed her, but he didn't. He made her feel powerless. That's kind of why she snapped at Claire like she did, and kind of had her hand around Claire's throat, because in her mind it was just kind of like Claire was kind of playing her. It's like, I know about this whole Luke Cage situation, but Claire's just trying to be like, yo, Luke is innocent, I'm not going to talk anymore about this. And it's just like, she'd already, like, in her mind kind of been shamed because of what happened with Diamondback, that she was just kind of like, she wanted to take back control. So I feel like, overall she's a very good person. She tried her best, especially the whole Candace situation, but because she couldn't really trust the system, because it did fall through too many times. Because even her, the Inspector Ridley, even she was like, okay, you didn't trust me about this whole Candace situation, and because of that, she died. I mean, that was super sad. Like, because I was wondering what was going to happen when Shades picked up her phone. I was like, oh man, now they have the recording to Candace talking about Mariah's the one that killed Cornell, and that she lied about Luke. And then it was like, oh no, she already has the evidence on a different, she had it on a laptop. I was like, okay, she already pulled it off, that's cool. But then she got the text, I was like, oh no. But then they were talking about the body, and then they cut back to like her being like, okay, Misty, where are you? And then Shades walks up, I'm right here, pulls the trigger. I was like, no, that sucked. And that hit Misty hard, and that's probably going to be a big thing moving on, into season 2. I mean, I don't know how well the show is doing. I mean, it's currently, well, at the time of recordings, it's almost 2:00 Sunday morning. I ended up finishing this yesterday. I ended up finishing it all, not yesterday, Friday. I ended up finishing it all in one day. So I watched most of it in the morning, because I watched it like the moment it came up. Like, Hero came out at like 3 in the morning. So the moment that happened, I started watching it. Took like a nap, because I watched until about 11 o'clock, took a nap, and then around 5 or 6, I finished the rest of the season. It was like the last 4 or 5 episodes. Nevertheless, the point is, actually, I don't know what the point is. I actually completely forgot what I was saying. Right, I know. Okay, I remember now. That basically, that's going to be a thing moving on, because we saw in the final episode that kind of reflecting the first episode, she heads to Harlem Palace, and she has her eyes set on Mariah and Shades. So, she has to kind of live on with the guilt of the fact of what happened to Candace, and now she's going to try and put in a lot of effort to kind of bring Mariah and Shades down, not just for what they did then, but for everything that they've done. I'm actually I am surprised that Mariah ended up getting away with everything that she did, and she's so cocky and condescending about it. Just every move she makes, especially her assistant, that dude Alex, screw him being like, oh, I can be here, I can help you do whatever you need me to. He's the one that tracked Candace down in the first place. Like, if he had never brought up the fact that she was turning on Mariah, none of that would have happened, the douchebag. So it's not just, it doesn't all lay on Missy, it lays on Mariah, it lays on Shades, and it lays on that douchebag. I'm sure we're going to be seeing him in the future doing some shady crap too. But that was just kind of all I really want to kind of get at that moment. And then I also want to talk about Scarf too. Scar. I don't know why I said Scarf. Scar, Misty's partner. Like, I liked him from the beginning just because I was like, oh yeah, you're that witty partner. But him being dirty, like, I don't know what it was. Something immediately hit me. I was like, you're dirty, aren't you? I just get the feeling you're dirty. A little bit of time went by. I was like, nah, maybe I'm just being a little judgmental. And then the moment it happened, like, the moment it clicked in my head was the moment he was there alone with Chico. I was like, oh my God, you are a dirty cop. I was like, okay, how are you going to do this? I was like, he's going to pull out his gun at one moment and shoot him. And I was like, I was waiting for it. I was like, oh, nothing's happened. Maybe I was. And then he starts choking him. I was like, nope, there it is. Came as no surprise to me. Just obviously the moment that whole Chico thing happened, I was like, yep, he's dirty. Like, the moment he was alone with Chico, I was like, you're definitely dirty. But I always had this nagging feeling about him. I literally brought that up in something else. I think it was Lethal Weapon. I was like, because I'm always suspicious of cops in TV shows. And I'm not trying to bring this into a real world thing. I don't want it to turn into that. So if you want to try and turn into that, please don't. I'm just talking about TV shows, something fictional. Yes, similar things happening in reality, dirty cops, blah blah blah. I'm not trying to undersell that situation. I'm just saying that I'm trying to allocate this just to the TV show. This is purely for entertainment purposes. I'm not trying to get real with this. I want it to be simply fun, just about a story, and leave it at that. I don't know, because I feel like I don't want it to turn real. That's all I'm saying. And I'm just going to leave it at that. If you feel the need to talk about it, I'd rather you didn't. But if you went that way, I'm not going to stop you. Freedom of speech and everything, you know? But nonetheless, it's just kind of like, every time I turn around, like, there's a dirty cop in a TV show. It's just, and I expected as much with this show. You would think, because it's like, oh man, they, I mean, literally, like, that was a big part of season 1 of Daredevil, but not just this, other shows as well. We didn't get to see it, but there was, like, we only got to really see, like, 2 particular dirty cops, but it does seem like there were quite a few in Misty's precinct or whatever that happened. Because that was another thing, kind of the comparison between Fisk and Cornell, just kind of like they had deep pockets, you know, and deep connections to different people. Earlier, I was talking about Mariah, and something else I was clicking in my head. It's because, like, we had Fisk actually going to jail in season 1. I mean, granted, you know, spoiler alert, you know, if you haven't seen season 2 of Daredevil, he ended up breaking out in season 2. But I was actually expecting Mariah to actually go down for what happened. I mean, the moment that whole situation happened where Candace got that text, I was like, yeah, she's going to get off. They're up here grilling her. Missy thinks she's got her, especially when her partner Bailey walks in. I'm like, yep, found out about Candace, so... But Scar, I really liked him. Really funny dude. Really sad the situation ended up the way it did. I was hoping that they could have gotten him medical attention. He could have been around or something. But it's like being who his character was and just being dirty like he was. I mean, the whole situation spiraled out of control when he tried to extort more money from Cottonmouth. I'm like, yeah, so I got your guns, but you got to give me 100,000 more. It's like, I'm a cop. You shot a cop, but... sadly, things ended the way they did. Especially also finding out his son's situation. That was super sad. And Misty kind of brought it up. You would have never actually known that about Scar. I think I keep calling him Scar. I don't know why. I think never mind. But the fact is, his son ended up dying because Scar didn't lock up his gun good enough, and his son found it and accidentally shot himself. And she brought up the fact is, you know. Scar never smiles, and that's for, like, you know, he tells jokes, he acts like such a silly dude, but he never actually smiles, type of thing. So that was kind of messed up. You know, really these are kind of the main things I really want to talk about. Some side things I want to talk about really quickly. Obviously we got Diamondback in messed up condition because of that fight with Luke, which was pretty impressive. I like them representing, like, him, like, using his powers in his show, just especially when he goes all one-handed, grabs someone, throws them up into the ceiling and stuff like that. I know that was a big gripe a lot of people had with Jessica Jones, is because the fighting wasn't as like good as it is in Daredevil. I mean, which to be granted, it makes sense with Daredevil because things are meant to be more choreographed. But Jessica Jones, the biggest focus was on the story. I see what a lot of people said, like it wasn't anything, and I feel like Luke Cage kind of learned from Jessica Jones, kind of like his thing isn't about properly fighting. I mean, he did when he fought like in prison, in those fights in prison, yeah, but his main thing is just simply overpowering you, grabbing you, and throwing you and stuff like that. But I really like when he just like picked people up and just threw them against the wall. Also, when he just like grabs a gun and just like bends it and twist it like cardboard or something. I just thought it was kind of fascinating. A side note also, I didn't bring this up earlier. I actually didn't expect Diamondback to be who he was. Obviously being connected to Luke's. Like I assumed Diamondback was going to be Rackham from the prison, that he was still alive and that he was secretly Diamondback. I thought that was going to be a twist, but for him to be Luke's half brother, that was an unexpected twist as well. Because I kept wondering, I was like, what, got him so pissed at Luke? It's like, what from their past? He made it seem like, I mean, there was a long list of things because it's like, it started with Luke and him getting in trouble. Luke being a preacher's son, his dad kind of spoke on his behalf and got Luke off, but didn't do the same thing for Willis and kind of left him out there kind of in the cold, sent Luke off to the military. But then, Willis got sent to juvie. He, got attacked, protecting himself. He killed someone out of self-defense. Ended up going hard time. I mean, yeah, that led to everything, but I just thought that was kind of interesting, like that turnabout, because I was so set and being like, yeah, Rackham's actually still alive. Even when he died during like the experiment, I still was kind of expecting it to be him, like, oh, he's actually alive, he survived. But the point I was getting at, we had Bernstein kind of, we see him going into Diamondback's hospital room, so I can only assume he's going to come back with like powers like Luke. I don't really know, like, obviously I don't know because I don't really know comic books, but I wonder I'm sure that whole suit getup he had at the end of in the final episode when he's fighting Luke and whatnot, I'm pretty sure that's probably connected to his like supervillain persona, like, in some Luke Cage comic books. I am very curious, like, who are some of Luke Cage's villains? Do let me know in the comments too, so name me a few so that I can check them out and see who they are, because I'm very curious. Because there's not that many Marvel villains I'm really aware of. Like, because a lot of Marvel villains, I know who they are because of Spider-Man. Because, a lot of Marvel, I mean, it kind of works for comic books in general. A lot of people share the same villains. But I know, like, I know Fisk because of Spider-Man. I know the Punisher because of Spider-Man, because in the 90s he was in an episode or a couple episodes of Spider-Man, so that's kind of my first experience with him back then. Interestingly enough, Daredevil was also in one of those like Spider-Man cartoons from like the early to mid 90s that used to come on Fox. That was actually kind of my first experience with Daredevil too. That was kind of like prior to the Ben Affleck movie. Feel however you want to about it. I don't think it's as bad as people make it out to be. I know sacrilege. A lot of people are going to hate that opinion, but nevertheless, like, I was okay with it. So, but prior to that, like, that appearance of Daredevil in that Spider-Man cartoon was kind of my first experience with him too. So just kind of throwing that in there. So, but I can only assume he's going to come back kind of, because I like that name Diamondback, and I feel like that's going to be even more so. I'm sure it kind of melds with the fact that he's got that suit on, and the power pack on the back is kind of charging, as he's fighting more and more. So obviously we can see him being set up as a big time villain. And then finally, kind of one thing I wanted to note, just because it was just kind of like, I was like, wait, what? That cameo appearance of Method Man. Like, he's up there being robbed, and one of the robbers like, yo, takes off his mask and everything. He's like, yo, Meth, yo, sorry about this, man. Yo, Wu-Tang, man, I used to fuck with Wu-Tang back, and that was my shit back in the day. And Method Man's like, yo, really? You gonna start this conversation up now while you robbing a place? Like, yo, dude, what's wrong with you? And then Luke shows up, and the guy's like, yo, what's up with you, bro? You look like you've been through a cheese grater. He's like, oh, man, knocks him out real quick. And then, like, even Method Man was like, yo, snap, yo. And they up there like, yo, Luke referencing like, yo, I love this song, that's my jam and everything. And even the fact is Method Man later on, like, is with Sway up there talking about the whole incident. Yo, I met Luke Cage. It was awesome and stuff. I was like, dude, I was like, that's so meta and that's so cool. Like, that's probably like one of my favorite cameos. Just like, it was just a silly, all around amazing thing, and I loved it. So that was just kind of last note I kind of wanted to make. Yeah, that's really it. Like I said, I'll reiterate it again. I really like this series. Personally, I don't really give a crap how people feel. I mean, I do care about it because, because how people feel about it will determine whether or not it comes back for a second season. I feel like I don't have to worry about that. I feel like it's one of those situations, Netflix being the way they are, it's just kind of already guaranteed. It's like, yo, that second season is going to come up. Like I said, it's going to be a long while until that even becomes a possibility. Another thing too, I almost let it slip my head, is the slogan that Bobby Fish gave to Luke. He was like, basically like, you need to turn this into a business, and Luke is like, I don't want to be, I don't want to be paid for this. Don't, I'm not. He's like, no, I'm not a hero or whatever. And then Bobby is like, you should use that as your slogan. I ain't no hero. Pay me. And literally in the back of my mind, I kept thinking, because I do know about him and Iron Fist being a duo, that they're kind of buddy. I mean, obviously you see that heavily in Ultimate Spider-Man, but I also know because I've heard people referencing them as a team, because it's a set of comic books known as Heroes for Hire. So I was also thinking, like, maybe they can turn Pop's barbershop into that. I mean, because it's like, because they were talking about the fact is, well, maybe this shop can't be a barbershop anymore, because it's like, whole situation with Pops happened, it got destroyed. It got destroyed during the fight with Diamondback. So, because he even said something similar when Connie, which I thought she was going to be a bigger like annoyance than she was. Like, it was basically like, oh, she's going to be kind of the hard ass, constantly asking him for money. But it's like, no, she turned out to be a very sweet lady. And she's like, oh, we want to hire you. And he's like, I'm not for hire. The moment he said that, I was like, because I was literally thinking, it's like, Heroes for Hire is like, y'all like kind of squeaking that in. I feel like they only did it like twice, didn't they? So I don't know. Nevertheless, I just wanted to kind of last minutely talk about that. Once again, overall, I liked it. So I think at the end of the day, for me personally, that's all that matters. I mean, sure, everyone's got their own opinions about it. So maybe I'll watch some other people's reviews. I don't know what SourceFed Nerd's going to do about the whole situation. I don't know if they're going to continue doing superhero roundups on Fridays, especially, because I know I'm kind of going off book here, but Flash and Arrow come back next week / this week, depending on where you feel like Sundays fall. For me, Sundays kind of the beginning of the week. For me, maybe that's not the same thing for some people. Some people are like, no, Sunday's the end of the week. Nevertheless, they come back. So maybe, I don't know, maybe they're not doing superhero roundup anymore. Maybe they're just going to do the Best Thing podcast. I don't know. I find it funny when I talk about someone else's stuff, especially SourceFed Nerds, like when I'm referencing other like stuff they're doing and stuff like that. It's kind of, I don't know, I feel weird doing that. It's like, I don't promote my other stuff, but I'm up here talking about other people's stuff like that. I just think it's funny. So, but I'm very curious to see, because I did happen to see that they are, I think they were live streaming themselves watching it, kind of like, get everyone to join in. I mean, I couldn't do it anyway because I feel weird. Well, because I've already seen it. Like I said, I literally finished it the day it came out. So, which is very interesting because I normally don't do that. Sometimes I end up finishing, just depending on me. I end up, no, because I did Stranger Things like that. I think these are kind of the only 2 shows I've done it, because usually I'll get through most of the season at first and then watch the rest of it like the next day. So it usually takes me about 2 days to finish something like that, especially something Netflix binge wise, because most Netflix shows are either 10 or 13 episodes. So, but I think I've rambled on long enough. So yeah, that's it. So till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.